It's a reason the Sixteen Chapel painting is on the ceiling. It's a reason for that. Imagine if it was actually the floor. Thank you so much, guys. I'm so happy to be here and excited to talk to you all.
Absolutely. So I'd like to say that this all started because that Bobby and I are pretty aggressive Twitter people, and you wrote a tweet about how you see shaping democracy, or you had sort of a formula or something in mind to um, out to do some to reassemble democracy or save democracy as we know it.
Okay.
And it got a lot of traction. Bobby saw it. Bobby was like, "This guy Barrington, we got to get him. We got to talk to him." And then I don't remember. Bobby connected us. I reached out to you, and as soon as I got you on the phone, I was like, "Oh, he's cool."
Thank
Like
you.
he's not an intimidating politician, and we kind of just got to chatting, and you were so impressive.
I
You're
appreciate that. I really
yeah,
do.
yeah. And I talked to Bobby after that. Bobby, I wish you were on that call because
Yeah.
it was a really really insightful conversation. We were kind of texting a little bit after that, and my head was all over the place. So I didn't get to talk to you as much as I would have liked in between. But
Right.
Barrington, let me ask you if I could. So it's pinned to your Twitter profile, which, if you don't mind, give your Twitter profile out for when we release this. People aren't following you. I believe they should.
Okay.
You said you're going to be introducing some revolutionary changes. So, number one, have you done that? Number two, can you tell me sort of just give me 30,000 foot view of what those are?
I think change starts with self. And I think that's the biggest proponent that I've been trying to push. Let me not say try, because I have been pushing that. I think overall, we have a tendency to absolve ourselves of personal responsibilities that we can control. And we've been kind of sort of indirectly been taught by our politicians, by a lot of the social, I would say, dichotomies of society that teaches us that, you always need help or somebody has to do this for you. But what I've come to realize, especially within my lifetime, especially within my own personal journey through life, that as long as you master everything within your control, then everything else really does not matter. And when it does matter, the people or the leadership that's in position to change those things, they can actually work for you, unlike our political system now, which is controlled by corporate interests. So I think that ultimately the biggest message or the foundation of that specific tweet that's pinned on my profile is to actually get people to look in the mirror. Because what I figured out, and I think this is all due to my parenting, specifically my father with a sprinkling of my mother, and we may get into that later on because it's a reason I'm saying this.
I think I know where you're going with that.
Yes, and my dad always taught us to everything is your fault, no matter what it is. Everything is your fault, right? And if you live life thinking that anything that happens to you, even if like it's something random that you can't really take the blame for, if you look at it in a sense, well, I made this decision in order for this thing to happen to me, then what you'll start to do is formulate a reality to where you legitimately control everything in your power. And when you start to build a community of people like this, what tends to happen is everybody is self-efficient to the point to where in regards to politics, rather, the politicians legitimately have to work for you now because you don't need anything from them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Tell me if I'm on the right track. This actually happened to me the other day. I had an appointment and I was running late for my appointment, and I took 3 steps out of the garage, went to the car, was driving. I'm like, shit, I forgot an umbrella. Florida weather's crazy. Got out of the car, got rained on, my fault. Now, it's a stupid little anecdote, right? But I didn't leave myself the extra 2 minutes to consider carrying an umbrella. Now, again, very small thing. But to simplify it from that perspective is I didn't get mad at the clouds. Like stuff happens.
Absolutely.
Stuff happens in life the second you wake up. I always tell people all the time, there's 250 people a year die getting out of bed, but you still get out of bed.
Correct.
You fall, you hit your head on the nightstand, whatever. And there's things you can control and things you can't. And that's what I think I find so fascinating about your profile. I retweet you a lot. I respond to you a lot. Absolutely. Mainly because of the way that you get attacked. You get attacked a lot, and you're kind.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen you be brutal in return to the kind of verbal brutality you face.
Yeah, for what? Right? Like, why? Where do I get out of returning fire from a complete stranger, from a person that does not know me,
yep,
that I don't know, and who's honestly taking the time to lash out for whatever reason? And it's not my business why they're lashing out, right? It's
right.
none of my business whatsoever. And I think that, like, I've always been fascinated with human psychology and how humans react and how humans act, and specifically in regards to social media. Social media allows us to be an avatar of ourselves in which we are able to behave, to put on, or to create this sort of personification of ourselves that's not necessarily our true self. The thing about me personally is that I feel, or I realized at an early age, that who I am as an individual is already unique. So I don't necessarily have to act a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I know that a lot of the things I discuss on Twitter could be controversial. However, like a lot of times, yes, I'm stating my personal opinion, but I'm looking at it from a critical thought perspective to which is fair for everybody. Because at the end of the day, I aim to be fair, right? So I think that in having sort of empathy and compassion and understanding what it's like to be angry, and understanding that there's a vast range of human emotions, and I do not know what the person is feeling like on the other side of the world from their phones or their computers. My mother always taught me that it costs nothing to be kind to somebody. It's free. Because you just never know what a smile or what something positive can do to someone's psyche or to their overall mood. So when I get attacked, like I understand, that these people are very, very, very adamant about what they feel. Same as I. We have a commonality there, but we won't get to a middle ground of understanding, because that's what it's about at the end of the day. It's not about being right. It's not about being wrong. It's about us sharing perspectives so we can at least understand why we feel the way that we feel. And I think that ultimately is like how I try to carry myself, because I tell everybody this on Twitter, and you probably seen me say this a couple of times. I'm not here to debate you. I do not care about being right, because it's not about being right at the end of the day, because there's a lot of things that we have opinions on that's very relative, that essentially it's not about right, it's not about wrong, it's not fact or it's not fiction. It's just how we feel about a certain thing, right? So in order for me to grow, because I want to be wise, I want all the wisdom in the world. In order for me to be wise, in order for me to obtain that, or at least get to a close point of obtaining that, I need to understand why you're feeling the way you feel and why you're thinking the way you think. So even if I say something that you disagree with and it makes you angry, and you can say all the craziest things to me in the world, I'm not going to return fire. You just taught me something. You just taught me something, and that's really all that matters.
I think the meanest thing I've seen you call somebody was beloved. I think that's the meanest thing I've seen. I was looking. I'm like, yeah, he's I can't even tell if he's being sarcastic. I really can't.
Well, yeah, right. One thing that you said is that, your mom always taught you that, it's free. It costs nothing to be kind. I think that when you do it right, it's almost an investment, because it's not only free, but you're showing someone that they're not going to always get vitriol in a response when they spew vitriol. Somebody else is going to think highly enough, and then that might teach them so that they're better. So when I say investment, it's not necessarily for personal gain, but it's just for, putting more right out there, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And I think that ultimately, like, when you return vitriol with kindness, you hold the mirror up to people, and that's all I try to do.
Yeah.
I want to hold the mirror up to you, because I want you to really ask yourself, like, wow, all this gentleman there was stating an opinion about how he feels about something, and I attacked him, and instead of him attacking me, he returned kindness. So
Right.
what is
They're going to stop and think about that.
Yeah, so like,
They're going to stop and think about that.
Absolutely. So it's like, what is my problem? Why am I so angry?
Why am I so angry?
Why am I so angry? And why am I so angry to a complete stranger?
Yep. It shows that it holds up a mirror. You're Absolutely. Right. Because you can get really bogged down into just, well, screw you. Well, this is this. Well, you're wrong. And then nobody's stopping and looking at why they're doing it.
No, and then as time goes on, like this is what people don't understand. This is how like a lot of the conflict in our nation gets started amongst common people, to where we as common people fight amongst each other, while our politicians or a lot of the corporate heads just sit back and say, hey, we got them right where we want to. And we don't have these types of discussions enough, not to necessarily, again, to be right or wrong, but just to have understanding, to understand someone's perspective. The best metaphor I have is, it's a reason the Sistine Chapel painting is on the ceiling. It's a reason for that. Imagine if it was actually the floor. Do you not know how much detail you would miss because you're right up on it? The fact that you're able to look at every dynamic of it standing afar is how perspective is. It's how it should be. Because a lot of times there are so many nuances of life that we do not understand, that if we just continuously hold on to our owns, or those that we feel, or those that we agree with, then we will miss out on specific aspects of why other people feel the way that they feel. And together with combining our different perspectives, it makes a clearer picture, so to speak.
Is that yours? There's a reason that the 16th chapel is on the ceiling and not on the floor?
That is 100% mine. That's 100% mine.
Bobby.
I just said that. I just made that.
What are we gonna do with him, Bobby?
You're talking to an Italian guy here, so like I started to weep as you mentioned the chapel.
I know. I was looking at you. I'm like, why is his face getting droopy?
Oh, no, I guess so.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, if I ask you anything you feel uncomfortable with, let me know. Okay, I don't feel like you are going to feel uncomfortable with anything I ask you, but you tend to. Also, if I phrase a question where I say you tend to and I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Okay.
You tend to engage more with people of color on Twitter. Or when you say hold up the mirror, there's an obvious reason why you would hold up a mirror to people of color, right?
Right.
What is that deliberate, or is that just what you're thinking about in the moment? Do you think that you're more qualified to challenge people that have similar experiences to yourself, or are you just challenging in general?
That's a great question. That is a great question. And I'm so happy that you asked me that. Because I feel like I'm actually writing about this now, but I actually want to talk about this because even like from people I'm close with, and even on my radio show, a lot of times people say that like I have a lot of anti-Black rhetoric, or I'm very critical of Black people, right? But I think what people are understanding is this is sort of, I would say, the reaction to a lot of indoctrination that even I have gone through, being a part of the Black community, right? And I say this because a lot of times, like the thing about me and the thing that my parents always push with me is always ask questions. So I've always been curious. I've always been inquisitive. And so I'm just going to like paint a picture for you. Elementary, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, elementary school. When you learn about people that look like you, specifically Black people, this is legitimately your history that you learn in the American education system. Slavery, civil rights, and within civil rights, shout out to MLK. It's MLK Day. Happy MLK Day to you guys. You learn about MLK. You learn about specific characters of the civil rights movement, and then as of 2008, you learn about Obama. That's it, right? So taking that, it can automatically build some type of self-image that is extremely inaccurate if you don't have the necessary people around you, i.e. your family, to give you a more in-depth look of the history, specifically from people that look like you. So when you start with that type of indoctrination from a child, by the time you get to our age range, you automatically have this picture, this idea, even though you live in America, the most freest nation in the world, you would think that I'm Black. So automatically I got all these ceilings over me. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So again, my thing is trying to get people to think outside of those thought processes, because I used to be that way. I used to be that way, right? And then I started to do a self-assessment of my own life, because what I realized is that my life and my ideas and what I thought at that time were conflicting. I used to tell people all the time, like, oh man, like America is racist. America jurisprudence is full of racism. Is how this country was started. And then I had to think to myself, okay, what has happened in my individual life in order to support that? Nothing. My dad is law enforcement. My uncle is law enforcement. I've never had any negative run-ins with the cops. And when I have had run-ins with the cops, it's always been copacetic. It's always been cool. Why? Because of how I was taught by my parents. On top of that, another reason that I think that I totally extend my rhetoric to Black Americans is because of this notion that anytime Black is talked about, it's talked about everybody, right? And it shouldn't be that way. We should be broken just like everyone else. It has to be broken down within social economics. The reason I say this is because there are a lot of privileges that I had growing up in a middle class family where my mother and my father was there. That a lot of times a lot of Black kids don't grow up with those privileges. A lot of Black kids don't grow up with both parents. A lot of Black kids don't grow up in the middle class lifestyle, right? So automatically, and this is something I had to learn myself, you can't make blanket statements about an entire race of people, because everybody has different thoughts. Everybody has different ideas. Everybody believes different things. Everybody comes from different backgrounds. So if that's the case, when someone says something along the lines of, well, you totally ridicule the Black experience, and then I ask immediately, so what is the Black experience? What is it? Because we grew up differently. Like legitimately, like you don't know. I don't know how you grew up. You don't know how I grew up. So in order for you to automatically assume because of what the media shows you and what politicians say about you, and because essentially it's engineering in some sense. If you see an image on a TV like a whole bunch of times, repetitiously, continuously, then you start to think that's your reality. But even if you go out your front door and your life is never like that, you will tend to believe that, hey, it's still that way. And this is what we're seeing in our nation right now. So when I speak to Black people, it's not to put them down, it's not to ridicule them, because I really don't feel like I do that at all. I feel like it's essentially my rhetoric is tough love. And I think that that's more so important, because I think it's disrespectful that we live in a society right now that has so much extremely low expectations for this one group of people, and instead of fighting it, instead of looking at it as disrespect, they look at it as pity, and that this type of pity is deserved when it's not.
So am I picking up like a little bit of resentment if you're pitied because of the color of your skin? Is that maybe not resentment?
I think Barrington, what I'm hearing is that you're just showing another way. You're just showing another way.
Yes.
You know, like the Black experience. Why are you necessarily assuming that it's blanketed? Why are you assuming that your experience is my experience? Like you said, you grew up with a lot of things that, you know, maybe other households didn't. Both your parents were there. You know, you had resources. You know, you were taught values, and, you know, you have a nice home, things like that. What is the Black experience? Like you said, like you asked that question because you're about to show them that it isn't necessarily what you've been taught.
Right. Absolutely. It's not what you like. And I just think a lot of people, again, they don't look in the mirror. Like they allow everyone else to tell them what their life is, or tell them what their experiences is. And because these images show that, or because of a specific history or a specific part in history that is always beat down your throat, then automatically you think that this is what it is, when essentially it's not. It's not a facade. It's a mirage. It's a mirage of ideas, right? For example, and I tell people this all the time. The greatest thing I ever did over the last 5 years was learn my family ancestry. That was the greatest thing I've ever done in my life.
I love that face.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
The reason I said this is because it automatically broke all the narratives that was given to me. Think about this, right? It is 2022, meaning that human beings have been here for a long time, right? Can you imagine if you predicate your entire identity off of a group of ancestors on the timeline of human existence that is like this big?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I'm getting into it. So basically, a lot of the Black identity, which shouldn't even exist, is predicated off of slavery. How is that possible? Like, I know for a fact through my ancestry that a lot of my people on my mother's side of the family were here before America was even America. I know for a fact that I have a great grandfather that fought in the Crusades. I know for a fact that one of my great grandfathers is Sir William Harris of Essex, the High Sheriff. So again, with this knowledge, right? Oh, let me keep going. One of my grandfather owned slaves. One of my grandfathers fought in the Confederacy. One of my grandfathers was a slave, right? Okay, I just gave you like all these different people that were men who had different occupations. Why in the world would I only attach who I am to that grandfather that was a slave? What sense does that make? Not to mention, we're mixed. All of my ancestors didn't look like this.
We're all mixed. I mean,
we're all mixed. And so when you live in a society that tells an entire group of people, millions of people, that this is who you are because of this is what happened to people, not to your family, but people that look like you.
Yeah.
What? That's a problem. That's the issue. And the crazy part about it is the media, politicians, those with huge platforms, they only do it to this specific group of people in the way that they do it. I feel like it happens to everybody. But I feel like when it comes to like entertainment, when it comes to the arts, when it comes to things that influence pop culture, there is a specific narrative that must be maintained with Black Americans. And if you ever go outside of that narrative, I think it disrupts the fabrics of society in a sense, because I really have this feeling, and this is a working thesis, that the moment the Democratic Party does not have the stronghold over Black Americans, politics will have parity, and now you will actually force politicians to actually work for the people. That's my hypothesis.
That's
so I guess. Go ahead, Oz.
That's damning in a good way and intriguing. That's I can't imagine that you're the only one that's coming up with that. There's so many questions I want to ask you. Bobby, go ahead.
Well, that actually, I just want to comment. I begged the Democratic Party to give me someone other than the front runners. I really did. I mean, I don't consider myself Republican. I lean conservative. I haven't voted Republican in quite some time. Mm-hmm. But I also didn't vote Democrat in the last two. I went Libertarian because, and Ossie is going to hear these stories over and over again, but I tend to ask questions with stories. I didn't want either of these horrible candidates to be my fault, my opinion, right? But I also didn't want to not vote because I feel like I can't be a part of the conversation unless I actually walked in and punched a hole in a card. So I voted Libertarian, knowing that it was basically a wasted vote. But I begged the Democratic Party to give me someone. I'm just going to throw Tulsi Gabbard out there. I'm not saying she would have been perfect, but I'm saying, okay, now this is something I can explore and I can talk to and I can listen to her and talk to other people about her, see what they hate, see what they like. And then they just basically booted her out. And that was annoying to me. Okay. But to your point where you're saying that you can't base yourself on this one narrative of what your skin color what the media and society portrays your skin color as. You can't base yourself on that. Do you think there is a lot more education? I would be the white person on this podcast, right? Even though I'm first generation, I spoke Italian before I spoke English, and I'm from Southern Italy. I tan better than both of you. Do you think there's more education that needs to be done from somebody who's quote unquote white, who might judge you off that narrative he or she is hearing because of your skin color?
Education. See, that's
I think he's doing it now. Like, so Bobby, when you say
Right, yeah, yeah.
education, there's textbook education, and like Barrington's pointed out, the curriculum that is just, I don't see it changing anytime soon. I mean, it's just, it's stodgy, and it is what it is, and it's been that way for 80 years.
Right.
So the education has to come in forms like this.
I guess my question is, Barrington, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you think you're more effective it goes back to my earlier question, because I see you engaging more with people of color, Black people and people of color. Do you think like you're more equipped to help educate them what they shouldn't see themselves that way?
Absolutely. I think I'm more adept to educate anybody, because at the end of the day, what I'm giving is not necessarily like concrete facts or knowledge, even though a lot of times I do add a lot of facts in there. It's just opening up a different note of thinking, right? It's not about the information.
That's amazing.
It's not about the information. It's not about the information. It is, but it's not about the information. It's about what you're given and how you digest that information. When you
pinnacle of critical thinking.
Yes. When you just take something that's given to you, it's like you would never, if someone randomly on the street came up to you and gave you a drumstick of fried chicken, you're not just going to eat it without asking questions. You may not even ask questions. You may not even accept it, right? So look at information that way. Mm-hmm. If you are legitimately telling me something about myself, I then have to ask questions about what you're telling me. I can either reject it, I can either accept it, or I can do what I want everybody else to do and just simply ask questions. Why are they telling me this? Why are they telling me this without knowledge of who I am and the knowledge that I have? I tweet this probably once a month. I tell people this all the time. Are your thoughts your thoughts? And if they're not your thoughts, who put them there? And then ask yourself, why did they put them there? And to what benefit are they putting them there? People never have introspection about the things that they take in on their feed, i.e. social media. It's funny they call it a feed because it plays into your psyche. It's like a lot of times.
So good. That's so good.
That's a mic drop. That was awesome.
That's a mic drop.
Right. No one thinks about these things. And I find myself, and this is why I've learned to like have more patience. That's why I love teaching in a sense, because teaching has taught me that like grown adults are just like children, and you have to take your time with them because they may not see things the way you see it. And in all honestly, it's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
It's not their fault. And you have to have compassion, just like you would with a child. That's why people say, okay, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. That's real. That's honest. That's real. So I think if people had a tendency to just ask questions, you can hear the information, you can research information yourself, but just ask questions about what you're receiving and who the receiver is, who is the deliverer of the information. And once you start to do that more so with a lot of the information that we're getting in this day and age, within the information age, where a lot of times we get a lot of fiction more so than facts, you'll be able to decipher what you can ingest and what you can just throw away.
I'm going to ask you, if I could, a question that we asked Waj Ali from the same perspective. Is, do you think that and I asked it differently, but do you think that the conversation about race can be had without referencing race? In other words, Waj, I think a very intelligent answer, said the problem is whiteness and you have to call it that because historically that's what it was called. So I almost felt like he was saying it doesn't necessarily mean that all white people are the problem as he perceives it. It's a classification of something. And I've been thinking about that ever since he said it. I've had two really good things explained to me over the last 5 years. One was cultural appropriation. I didn't understand it. And a Black friend of mine explained it to me in a way that helped me at least accept it as a concept. And then Waj's explanation of why he calls it whiteness when he criticizes quote unquote whiteness. Do you think you can cover that issue without mentioning race?
Absolutely. Okay. So I think that this is a multi-tier type of question, because in regards to race, there's always going to be some type of historical application involved, right? You have to like set the stage or set the table, as I like to say, with understanding what aspects of race are we going to like be discussing. But at the end of the day, race deals with people. People are humans. Therefore, all of this has to deal with humanity, right? And I say this because you have to ask yourself, essentially, how do I want to be treated? How do I want to be treated? Like, no matter the color of a person, if an alien came down to Earth, if aliens came down to Earth, how would we want them to treat them versus how would we treat them? Now, I forget the theory. I want to say I forget what it is, but it's like being alone in the dark in the forest, and no matter you hear everything around you, you can't see anything. So anything that comes at you, you're gonna automatically attack. Let's not think about that because that has some validity to it. But I wanted to introduce a foreign entity or foreign beings into this because essentially, instead of a lot of times when we talk about race, we have a tendency to bring up the past, a past that none of us has experienced. And that often sets the table for us to where a lot of people believe that, well, you look white, therefore 100 years ago, the people that look like you were doing negative things to people that look like me when essentially I don't even know your family. So who am I to say what your ancestors, like make a blanket statement about your ancestors? That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. We should look at everything in the present in regards to race as far as treatment, as far as, okay, like the golden rule states, like treat people how you want to be treated. So why am I carrying the stereotypes of the aesthetics of a person or the aesthetics of a group of people to automatically think that, okay, because they look that way, because they look this way, because they have this skin tone, then I automatically know what to expect when essentially you don't. So I think that the conversation needs to be around simple humanity, right? Like when it comes to specific institutions, the same thing. I think everything in regards to the workforce, education should be merit-based. It should be merit-based, and opportunity should be on the same level playing field for everybody. Everybody, I feel like, should have the same opportunities in regards to chasing success. Now, because we are all different, the outcomes are going to look different, and that's fine. That's okay. But us grouping outcomes together based on skin color is ridiculous, and it's not. And it's never been for going for a positive outcome. It's all been for or to politicize different things. It's always ever been. I just think that in regards to race, to answer your question, Bobby, we need to look at things on a humanity level. How would you feel if somebody did this to you? No matter their color, no matter who they are, no matter their gender, no matter their sex, none of that. How would you feel? And if that makes you feel away, why would you in turn treat them that way or treat another person that way?
That's great.
All right, I got to ask something, and if it's too hot, we can cut it out. But I saw a comment on one of your threads. This was a while ago, Bear. I just called you Bear, by the way. It was about the comment Kanye made. Remember that viral comment in the TMZ interview? What did he say again?
Oh, slavery was a choice?
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
100%. 100%. He's right. He's right. And I think that, like, people have a tendency to just look at slavery in the sense of chattel slavery, being a slave person, but we all are slaves to things, and we actively make that choice to be the slaves to things every day. We are slaves to our habits. We're slaves to our bad habits. We're slaves to a lot of things that we know we shouldn't do, but yet we continue to make that choice. Now, to that ideal of slavery was a choice, right? We never have honest conversations in regards to society, civilization, and specifically past society, civilization. The time, like I would say, even 100 years ago, life was brutal. We live in the most civil time in human history ever. For example, just like maybe 200-300 years ago, if Bobby and I had a beef, I could challenge him to a duel and shoot him in front of a whole bunch of people, and it would be no issue. Vice versa. He
still might not have an issue if you shot me in front of a whole bunch of people, but go
ahead. Right. Okay. So we have a tendency to totally, like, I really believe that we don't see ourselves as the animals that we are, because survival of the fittest has remained, whether we like it or not. To me, my opinion, I have to say this, is that I believe what makes humans human is the ability to dominate another human without having to kill them or without having to use force. We have the ability to do that. You look at anywhere in the animal kingdom, if an animal wants to dominate another animal or show its dominance, rather, it kills the other animal more than likely. Humans do not have to do this. We see this daily. We see this in our society right now. So when it comes to, like, we never have an honest conversation about slavery. So let's have the brief intro that I think we should have. There were people living at a specific period of time, and there were people, you got to understand that the world was not known. No one knew how big and vast the world was, right? So when you have a group of people that have the technology to be able to do things, create guns, create all of this weaponry, create ships and boats, and they go to another country and they see that these groups of people are prehistoric in some sense. I hate to say this, it's human nature to dominate other people. It is. And it was more so common back then. And the reason I say this is because a lot of times the way slavery is postured these days, it make it personal. And I say that because I say this to say this. I say that to say this, excuse me. It's almost like an arms race. Whoever does it first has the power, and they have now the capability to exert their will on whoever they want to. It has nothing to do with being personal. It has nothing to fact, oh, you look like this, so I'm going to do this to you. No. It's the fact that I have this, you don't. I want what you have. Bingo.
Oh.
It's that simple. But we've been taught, and it's been totally ingrained, specifically with Black Americans. They only doing this because you're Black. They're only doing this because you look this way. Now, given in history, specifically during the Civil Rights era, Jim Crow era, absolutely. We understand that. I will never take that away at all. But when we start speaking about the times before pre-modernity, we don't ever have an honest conversation about it. So to go back to what Kanye said, and I asked this on Twitter yesterday to a person, if we were invaded tomorrow by whoever, and they had much more of the technological advancements in weaponry than we did, would you die fighting, or would you actually allow them to take you as a slave? That's a choice, whether we like it or not. It's not about the outcome of the choice. It's the fact that you have a choice at the end of the day, and to automatically absolve yourself of that choice, no matter how brutal that choice may be. You're giving into a narrative that you're helpless. You're giving into a narrative that you're weak. You're giving to a narrative that you have absolutely no responsibility or personal accountability of the choices that's given to you. And I think that it's a slap in the face to who you are as a person.
Wow.
Barrington, can you talk about your journey from?
Can you just continue to talk?
Yeah, I was going to say. I'm just so you want to. This is funny. I'm basically giving him the next 45 minutes. Can you just talk about you mentioned that you were a little bit angry as well. You're like, America's racist. To hear, what was that like? How did that happen?
I think honestly, okay. So let me see where it all started. So it all started. I probably somewhere in college. And then I really hate the way college is now, because it's not a form of higher learning or higher critical thought. It's a liberal cesspool. Let's be honest about that. And that's how I honestly feel about the college and universities right now. And so I ended up going to school for African American studies, and I think that's when it hit its zenith of this idea that damn, like, why does America have to be so racist? Why is it this? Why is it that? And you're angry because, again, the only thing you see is the narratives that support like this rhetoric. That's the only thing that you see, right? But again, I've always been inquisitive, so I started to ask questions. And then in asking questions, I always juxtapose what I see and what I hear to my own personal journey. Now, I'm not automatically, again, making a blanket statement that my experiences are the experiences, but I have the understanding that, wow, wait a minute now. There's somewhere a Black kid with both his parents, where both his parents are white, have white collar jobs, which means that they possibly grew up upper class, which means that they definitely don't have the same type of struggles or the same type of concerns that I have, which means that their reality is totally different. So if that's the case, would they be saying the same thing that I'm saying right now? Like, for example, if a person grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth, or even grew up like in a city. I'm gonna give you a rent, Sheboygan, Wisconsin. A black kid grew up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Do we have the same like lifestyle? Do we have the same beliefs? Do we have like again, the way that the population is made up is totally different. I live in a place where it's majority black people. That person lives in a place where it's majority white people. Automatically, the only commonality that we have is this. That is legitimately it. Outside of that, we don't have that much in common unless we have the same interests, but that's a whole nother thing, right?
Yeah.
So in me understanding this, I'm like, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. This is I have one side of an argument here. And I started to realize that, oh my God, I have one side of the argument. Then I was introduced to Thomas Sowell. Then I was introduced to Walter Williams, Shelby Steele. Then I went back and started reading Frederick Douglass, Carter G. Woodson. Shout out to Carter G. Woodson. He's not talked about enough in regards to the historical account of black people in America. I had to say that. I started reading all of these accounts, Booker T. Washington. I started reading all these accounts, right? And then I'm like, wait a minute now. We've been sold a lie. We've been sold a lie for a political narrative to continuously put people in office that want to maintain power, that necessarily do not do anything in politics to change anyone's bottom line, no matter what side of the aisle they're on.
Interesting that you said sold a lie, not fed a lie, not told a lie, sold a lie.
Yes. You go to the movie theater. You go to what do you see? 12 Years a Slave, Harriet Tubman. Wow. So you see, you have these boys in the hood. I didn't grow up like that. Like why can't we have a variety of stories? Not just for black people, but just in general. Because at the end of the day, when somebody else sees these things of another race, when they see me, they automatically think that I've went through these things. And it's like, no. This is how narratives are created, which in turns create stereotypes, to which creates the inherent biases that we have amongst each other. So again, I will never forget one of my first jobs. Well, actually, my entire working career before I started teaching was in the law, was in the legal field, because I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. So when I was about 14 years old, 14 now, I'm a black kid in Atlanta, 14 years old. I'm rubbing shoulders with some of the most prominent lawyers in the city. Like, I'm talking about millionaires at 14 years old. They'll automatically shape my perspective as well, because what I started to see was like, wow, I was once told that this old white man is evil and all of this, and he's just a regular person just like me. He's just a regular person just like me. So why is it that I have to carry this burden or carry this cross around, or this idea that everybody's out to get me, when essentially my personal life has taught me that, well, as long as I follow the rules, work hard, and legitimately attempt to be the best in the things that I do, I've been perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you go from, it's a two-tier type of anger. You're mad at what you're hearing. You're like, oh man, this is what happened to us, blah, 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 blah. And then again, like when I learned my personal ancestry, I said, oh, well, I can't say this happened to us because I know where I come from now. So now it's like, okay, then I started reading Sewell, Steele, Woodson. I'm like, wait a minute now. You mean to tell me that these disparities that I've been reading about has nothing to do with racism, but essentially culture? A culture that I've never been brought up around. I have a different culture that my family started way long ago before I got here, that has been proliferated throughout the generations, and it's why we are at the stage that we are in. You mean to tell me that these thoughts that I had are totally incorrect? Now I'm pissed.
Yeah, so that's the second part of the anger.
Yes, now I'm pissed because I've been living my life feeling this way about the society that I exist in, when essentially it's always been a conflict deep down, because I know for a fact that I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. It's a reason they say America is a free country. Why? Because for once, you legitimately have a blank canvas. You make it whatever you want to make it, 1000%. And people are not realizing that the more expectation and the more responsibility that you want to place in the government's hand, you're taking parts of your canvas away. You're taking parts of your freedom away. And you're legit, like, and you're not just, it's not that they're taking it, you're willfully giving it to them. Here, please lock me down. Please lock me down. I am so scared. I don't know what to do. Are you? No, I don't care. Here, take this. Please lock me down. I'm so scared. Now, when you look up months later, years later, damn, we can't do that no more. I can't speak freely on the internet no more. Yeah. I can't say what I want to say anymore, even though it could be wrong, but it's my opinion. And the First Amendment states that I should be able to say whatever I want to say, as long as it doesn't cause hurt, harm, or danger to another person. And it's like we don't think about these things. And so I think my journey has turned for me to like, okay, I looked at society from a racial lens. Then I realized, can't do that because there's somebody else with a different race than me that has worse problems that I have. But for whatever reason, their problems aren't being talked about because they have a certain skin color. That's not fair. Well, then, if that's the case, let me totally change that racial lens and let me get a wide view of everything else that's going on. Because at the end of the day, we have distinct commonalities of things that we expect out of our country or the things that we want from our country. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter where you come from, you want to be able to have a good job, take care of your family, live in a safe neighborhood, raise your kids the way you want to raise your kids without any outside interference, and ensure that they have a quality education to be upstanding citizens like you are. I think that is something all Americans can agree to. Very simple. Yet we have been fed lies, sold lies that's not the case at all. That's not the case at all. You see those people over there on that side that believe this is what they want to do to you. This is what they want to do to you. Then on the other side, oh, no. We don't want to do that. It's they're just doing that. What? No, I'm tired of that. That's ridiculous. That's not logical. Nothing about that is logical. So I honestly feel like I'm undergoing another change, to be honest, because I'm starting to realize or starting to see politics for what it is. I'm starting to see that, to me, in a lot of respects, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's and I hate to say this, but it's like entertainment as well. I really feel that way. Let me ask both of you guys a question just to see if I'm like kind of sort of on the right track. If us three, it's us three now. If we had 98, we're outnumbered. We outnumber probably, let's say 10,000 to 1 in a land, in a certain land. We're outnumbered 10,000 to 1. But yet we hold 99.9% of the power of that land, right? Would you want, or would any of us, I need you guys to answer this honestly. Would you guys freely give up your power to the people through a vote?
No. Not freely.
What do you mean by lane?
Say it again.
What do you mean by lane? We own 99% of the lane.
No. So we is this land of people, right? But we hold all the power. Us, we hold all the power, right? We hold all the power. We're the movers and shakers. We're the movers and shakers of that country or that piece of land.
Okay.
However, we understand that we're grossly outnumbered. If people start to figure out that we're the people that make the decisions, that we're the people that are the movers and shakers, then automatically we're done. However, there are certain processes that we can allow to give people the what is that called? The facade, the facade or the illusion. We can give them that's what I want to say, the illusion of power that they don't have. And so I asked you guys this. Bobby said no. If by voting, it's just because we're just 3 votes, but everybody else, we're outnumbered. If people vote, we automatically have the power. Will we give people that power? Would you want to give people that power?
It depends on what you and Bobby and I know that they don't.
Which is a lot because, again, we hold the reins. We hold the reins.
But people that hold the reins don't necessarily know what's good for the population.
But it doesn't. That doesn't matter. It's not about.
I would say no. I'm going to say no.
Okay. Okay. Right. I asked you guys that question because what I'm starting to see now is that specifically our political system is ran by capital. Actually, our entire country is ran by capital. Let's be honest about that. We've been fed this belief or this lie that as long as we every November go in that ballot box and press a button where the illusion of choice is just two people, and I totally agree with Bobby. The only president I've ever voted for was Obama. After Obama, I never voted for a president again, but I voted. However, I never voted for a libertarian ticket either. I always wrote my name in. Why did I always write my name in? Because I chose myself. I chose myself.
Love that.
I chose myself. Because at the end of the day, if this all goes to hell, and we have to say, or we have to have the moral responsibility, like, dang, I chose this. I will never have that. I will never have that burden because I chose me. And I will never, ever, 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 ever in a million years choose a lesser of two evils. Why am I choosing evil in the first place? This is how we continuously fall into the facade of thinking that we have a choice, or thinking that a simple choice on a ballot box gives us power, when essentially all we have to do is be a lobbyist and offer a politician, say, hey, I'm gonna give you $2 million to your campaign, just make sure this law passes. And what that politician is gonna do, yeah, he's gonna tell me he's gonna tell me great things, he's gonna make me feel a certain type of way, but when it comes down to it, when it comes to the list of people he has to do something for, my list is at the very bottom. My name is at the very bottom of that list. You know who's at the top of that list? That money of that lobbyist,
of course.
That money of that corporation.
Of course.
So with that being said, why don't we play the game the same way? Why do we continuously do the same, or perform the same behaviors, rather, expecting a different outcome? I believe Einstein said there was insanity, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that is a definition.
We really think about this. Every 4 years, every 2 years, every November, we vote for somebody. Things don't change the way we want them to, and yet we complain about the politicians when they're just simply doing their job. There are so many ways, and guys, excuse me for being verbose. I get very passionate about talking about this.
Keep going.
Keep it up.
There are ways, like put it like this before I get to that. We always say things, and I always hear this, we playing a rigged game. The game is rigged. No, the game is not rigged. You just don't know how to play. You just don't know how to play. At the end of the day, there are more of us than it is our politicians. We have these things called super PAC, guys. I don't know if you guys know what super PACs are or whatever. Yeah. Okay. You know, the political action committees. If you guys, or if people, not you guys specifically, but if people really care about change, why don't they unify, get together, because the capital is what makes the decisions. It's all about money. This is America. Yes. Money moves America.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Start a PAC of whatever you believe in. Say you had 1 million people donate $1 to that PAC. Now you're in the game. Now it's a whole different conversation, because the people are nothing more than the ends to a means. What I mean by that is of course, leadership needs your vote to be in office. They need your vote, but as soon as they get that vote, they don't care about you anymore. Let's be frank.
Of course.
You're behind, like you're not out of sight, out of mind, and they'll feed you crumbs every now and then. I.e., for example, they gave Black Americans Juneteenth last year. They gave Black Americans National Hip Hop Month. Little crumbs, like just feed them something so they won't. So
there's not an uproar.
Yes, right. But if you raise the capital and say, hey, we need this to happen, but on the back end, if you don't do this, when we give you this money, you won't see another lot of day in your political office.
That's
now
it.
Now the game.
Yeah. Or now we've entered the game.
Yes, and now
we've entered the game. Now we're playing it right. Unifying, I think, is the hardest part of that, and that's why we need atypical leadership.
Yes.
New leadership. New.
Yes.
It's funny you put it in such a simple way, and it got me thinking about, as you were trying to get Asi to understand the question and answer.
I understood the question. I just had more questions. I pick things apart just like Barrington does.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just take the question. I'm going to think about.
No, that makes sense.
I started thinking about what would I do in that position. So there's 3 of us that have all the land, all the power, and now I know, okay, there's 10,000 votes. What do I do to make sure those votes don't take my power, my land, my wealth? Well, I start to dribble little bits out to people who are going to support me amongst those 10,000 people,
Yes.
true or not. Right. What I'm just give
Yes.
it, I'm gonna give this guy $10 and that guy 20
Yeah.
bucks.
Yeah.
Yes, you play
Just
the
kind of
game.
start to accumulate this army that's going to parrot what I'm saying and doing,
Yes.
so that my power can't be taken away by the 10,000.
Yes.
And that's what's happening. That's what you're saying is happening.
Absolutely. And it's happening. And the crazy part about it is now it's not even hidden anymore. It's not even hidden anymore. Like they let you know like what it is, but it's like people are so caught up into their emotions and not their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't even say that because their thoughts aren't even theirs. Their thoughts aren't even theirs. Like again, like with social media could have been the most beautiful thing to ever happen because it could allow us to finally get a chance to see that, wow, we are not as different as we thought we were or as what we're told we were. But now all a good corporation or a good marketing person of a corporation has to do is artificially build up one profile with a lot of followers, a lot of following, plant a seed. Somebody or a group of people will be like, oh, I agree with that. And now they're going to be the loudest in the room. And in these days, the loudest in the room often take control of the narrative when essentially it could be totally missing facts or factual information.
Yep.
And it's like, man, like I'm really interested to see where we are moving to within the next decade, because it's just almost like I don't know where we're going anymore. At first, I used to have the foresight to understand, like, oh, this is gonna happen, watch. And everything I've said up to this point has came true. But now
it's open. Now it's a question mark, right?
And now it's a question mark because I feel like we are so separated as a people. We are so divided as a people. We don't really understand or possess the understanding that in order for us to survive, we have to be unified at this point.
Yep.
It is totally fine to disagree. It is beautiful to disagree.
Yeah.
Because this is how perspectives are developed. This is how innovation happens.
This is how thinking happens.
Yes, absolutely. But the moment, for example, if us three just start agreeing on everything, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because at some point in time, we're going to miss something very important, and then we're all going to fail in some respects.
Maybe I really don't understand why. Like, I don't understand why people get upset when somebody disagrees with them. That drives me insane. Because if you're going to be proven wrong on something, it's going to come from somebody that disagrees with you.
Yes.
So if you actually want to learn and grow, you have to be able to have conversations with people who disagree, and you have to listen to them, and you have to not get mad at the individual. Just examine the idea that's coming your way. Otherwise, you're not growing at all. At all.
Exactly. So why does anybody get angry? And I know Barrington's going to back me up on this because this is a psychological study. I'm obsessed with this kind of thinking too. So why, I've thought about that a lot. Why does anybody get angry? Anger is it's a presentation of fear. So why are you afraid? I'm afraid because it means that I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough because I had the wrong answer. Or you may consider me less than because you're trying to show me something that I didn't know. So if you're secure and you don't have that fear, you're going to take it as a learning. Mm-hmm. But if you're afraid that it means it's not okay for me to not know something, if you have that fear, you're going to fight back. You're going to be angry.
Mm-hmm. I agree wholeheartedly with that. Like, no, everybody, I think that because of social media specifically, no one wants to be wrong, but more importantly, no one wants to be wrong publicly.
Yeah.
It's almost an ego type thing.
Yeah.
You know? And even if you are wrong, or if it shows that you're wrong, it's like people don't want to admit it because it's like they feel defeated when it's no defeat at all. It's okay. Like the smartest minds that have ever existed in human history have always been wrong about something. But the beauty of it, specifically in regards to our greatest innovators of all time, because they didn't get it right the first time, they kept going. So they kept going to the point to where, like, okay, now I get it. But now, in the exchange of thoughts and rhetoric and ideas and ideology, everybody wants to be right when essentially, again, ideology in regards to how you live life is very relative. Some things may work for you that I do, some things that you do may not work for me, and that's okay. As long as you're not raping, murdering, stealing, killing, or harming anybody else, I don't care what you do. I do not care what you do at all. Now, I'm concerned about if you have specific behaviors that could change the course or could alter society in a way that causes us to be less moral than we need to be. I may be concerned, but at the end of the day, I would never tell you how to live if it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's asinine. Why would I do that? Because you're a free individual, just like I'm a free individual. And then this notion of thinking as a collective is ridiculous as well too. The only collective you should think about is the collective of your household, your family.
Yep.
That is the only tribe where it is important or it is vital to survival to think as a collective. I cannot say or speak on the behalf of Black people. I cannot do that. I don't know what everybody's dealing with. I don't know what everybody's going through. I don't know anyone's social economic status. I don't know any of that. I can only speak for myself and tell you what I see from my vantage point, and you can tell me what you see from yours, and then we can start to put the pieces of the puzzle together to see where we can find a middle ground at. Or even if we can't find a middle ground, you can see some things I may have a blind spot on, and I can see some things that you may have a blind spot on, and we can help each other out. But this notion that, oh, you don't feel that way, oh, then you're not one of us. What? That's ridiculous.
One of the best things that ever happened to me was being made to feel stupid when I was like 19 years old. Where I grew up on the west side of Chicago, it was not cool to be smart. Wow. And I never got a B until I tried to get B's because I wanted to be cool. You know, I was just getting A's. I never had to study to get them. But it wasn't cool in my high school to be smart at all. You had to be an athlete. You had to be tough or whatever. So I decided to cut class and do stupid things. And but I still think I'm smart. I still know I'm smart at the time. So I'd go to a Catholic university. I consider myself a recovered Catholic, for the record. But I'd go to a Catholic university. I'd go into a philosophy class, and there's this nun teaching it. She's 4 foot nothing, right? Little thing, squeaky little voice. And she starts talking about statements that are, they're true, they're facts, period. There's no way to dispute them. And I, of course, being a smart ass, you can argue anything, you can dispute anything. And she says, it's either raining or it's not raining. And I jump up, I'm like, what if it's snowing? She goes, then it's not raining. And I felt so stupid, man. I felt so stupid. I was like, okay, I know nothing. To feel like I knew nothing at like 19, 20 years old, that's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Oh man, to your point, Bobby, that's one of the things I think that kind of transcended my note of thought or whatever, because my parents always used to say, growing up, that I always thought I knew everything, and they're right. Like my parents knew me pretty well. Like I thought I was like super smart, but then when you actually find someone who's actually really smart, who actually does the work, that totally changed.
Yeah.
Like I think it was Socrates that said that the one thing I do know is that I know nothing, and that's like one of the things or one of the ideologies that I've always adapted. Like I will never know anything, and as long as I continuously understand that, then I'm fine. But to your point, also as well as about philosophy, the best thing that also ever happened to me was studying the philosophy of emotions. By and large, when I tell you that I think that is something that should be a required philosophy needs to be a required course in high school in regards to that.
Oh my God, yeah.
Studying the philosophy of emotions needs to be a required course in high school. The understanding that, first of all, you have to understand the human cognition, your brain, and how your brain responds to external stimuli, right? And what I mean by that is there are automatic processes within your brain or your body that basically perform without you having to cognitively think about it. Okay. Then you understand the fact that also due to external stimuli, there are certain volitions or passions that are generated because of external forces. Now, the thing that separates humans from a lot of animals is that we can feel a way, but we don't have to react that certain way.
Mm-hmm.
For example, someone can insult me on Twitter, and I can get angry and return. But instead
Yep.
of doing that, I say, you know what? No needs to do that. It could piss me off. I could feel very offended, disrespected, but I'm not going to do that. That taught me that we have the propensity with our brain power to control our bodies and to control our reactions.
Yeah.
To things. And if you're able to master your emotions, no one's going to ever be able to control you.
That's right.
You're going to always be able to be clear. You're going to always be able to be rational. It's okay.
Right.
It's okay to feel like we've, in my opinion, now we have a tendency to overindulge in our feelings. Live within your truth.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that phrase.
I hate it. It's watered down what truth is.
Yeah.
That's what has happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that we just like in a society that overindulges on impulse, if we were taught at a young age to take a step back and to actually feel what we're feeling, but understand that there are certain ways to engage and certain ways to move with certain situations, life and society will look entirely different than it does now. But I feel like we're in a stage where we're in the era where it's about indulgence. It's about overindulgence. How do you feel? Do what you want to do. Do as you please. Do what you feel. It's okay. It's okay. You live in your truth. It's all right.
Yeah. God.
And it ends up hurting us all.
Yeah. It's like babying people, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's okay. You couldn't help yourself.
Yeah, you couldn't, right. It's like babying. Yeah, it's babying people.
No, that's not okay.
That's not equipping people with the tools that they need to do better, to be better.
Absolutely. It's not. And that's the point. Like, that's the point of society I think that we're failing at, because essentially, no matter our differences, there are specific duties that we all have, unspoken of duties, in order for us to not necessarily, in order for us to also to maintain but also get better. Like I always tell people, there are a few groups that we all have a duty to ensure that they have prosperous lives, simply because they're unable to take care of themselves. The elderly, able, and babies. I don't care who you are, where you're from. If you're in America, I think that you have a duty to ensure that those three vulnerable groups, because they can't take care of themselves, we carry the loads for them.
Yeah.
Everybody else, though, if you have two legs, two arms, you have to get it yourself.
Everybody else, though? I like how you said it like it's a secret.
You have to get it yourself. That's not to say that we can't help you when you need help. Of course. That's a part of life. Help is a part. We're all going to need help someday in some fashion.
Yeah.
No one ever gets it on their own. No one.
That's why the word help exists.
Correct. But this notion of, no, I'm only going to help the people that I like. What? What is? But then what happens? What happens when you're not a part of a group of people that don't like you, and it's a lot more of them than you? Then what? Right. Nobody ever thinks about these things, and it's like,
it's so true. I mean, because so nobody gets anything themselves. A lot of people would argue with that, but think about it. I mean, from the time you're a baby, somebody gave you a diaper, somebody put clothes on your back. You know, somebody gave you formula. You know, truly, you don't. I mean, you don't. You're not born in a forest as a caveman and like build yourself a home. You know what I mean? Like,
correct. Even in thought, like I would say, I think it would be disrespectful to my parents, to my grandmothers specifically, for me to say, or for me to tell you guys that how I got like this is on my own through reading. No, of course, you know, I've been doing reading, I've been doing studying, a lot of introspection, but my parents and my grandmothers, they laid the groundwork. They laid the foundation. The foundation is very important in building something stable like a house or anything else. my grandma specifically, my mom's mom, always taught me to ask questions, always taught me to never take something at face value. Never. Always be always be critical. Not in the sense of where you have to be overly critical, but don't be shy about really being inquisitive about what's around you or what someone tells you.
I think it's a perfect storm, honestly. So, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of pushback.
Okay.
So there's parents and foundation, and they obviously they did the right things. I mean, they did something, with you.
Yes,
But I think that there are certain people that have, the presence of mind and the intellectual aptitude to really grab onto it.
That's fair.
It didn't go through one ear and out the other. I mean,
Yeah.
you really latched onto it. You wanted to discover. You really let it marinate. You pushed it out.
Thank you. No, that makes sense. You're right, because I just had a conversation with my dad a couple of days ago. We talked for like 2 hours on the phone, to which he said to me that he doesn't feel like he doesn't feel I'm as empathetic or compassionate enough to other people, which I get it. But the funny thing about it, or the irony about that, is I asked him, I said, how do you think I got this way? Who taught me? Like, who taught me to be tough on myself, and in turn, I wouldn't say necessarily be tough on others, but just expect others to be better within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, I did, but there's no but. It's no buts. Like you always just say, there's no but. So why are you giving me a but right now?
Well, that's an interesting thing too. So I do on the other foot. When Dad says something, Mom says something, Grandma says something. And I used to be like that too, where I just know everything. And, if they're going to tell me something, I think that I already have the answer. But when you really think about, like, they look at all the life, look at all the runway they have ahead of you, and they know you better than anybody.
Absolutely.
So they know your gifts, they know where you're coming from, and they know that. So if they're still saying, but you could have more compassion, like they have something in mind that you don't.
Yes, that's what I take it as. I accept, and this is with anybody, even with you guys. I accept all criticism, constructive criticism, because my thing is I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday and be better than who I was at this time the year prior. Because I just think that as long as I become the best version of myself, I'm able to help out everybody else. Because that's what I think it's about at the end of the day. I always use the metaphor of life is this path of darkness, right? And at some point in time, we become enlightened, or we become an understanding of ourselves, and that's when we get our first light. That's when we get our light. And the more you walk, the more you start to understand yourself, the brighter your light gets, right? And then essentially you start to give other people who has light as well. And then you guys start to open up light for a path to allow others to see their own light. And that's how it should be. Nothing should be selfish. Nothing should be seen as I have to do this myself. No, because at the end of the day, we're all living this human experience, right? And if we're all living this human experience, that means that we automatically are imperfect, and that's okay. That's the beauty of being human being, that we're all imperfect. However, because there's so many distinct and unique personalities and unique mindsets and things of that nature, we're able to see the blind spots that we've been missing. And I think that, or believe rather, if people started to look at life in that respect, in regards to that, not only do you have an obligation to ensure that you're going to be okay and ensure that you're taking care of yourself, but you have an obligation to ensure that those around you are doing the same thing as well. Because we share this life together. We are doing this together. And if something happens to one of us, in a sense, on a wide scale, it happens to all of us. Gotta go back to Dr. King. What did he say? A threat to justice anywhere. Wow, what is that quote?
I know what you're talking about.
What I'm talking about.
A threat to justice anywhere, somewhere, a threat to justice everywhere.
Absolutely. Profound.
You're talking about the thing that the flight attendant tells you on the plane: secure your mask first before helping your neighbor.
Correct.
Some of these things are so simple.
So simple.
And first of all, I want to tell you, thank you for talking to your dad for 2 hours, because I miss mine every day, and it's coming up on 4 years now.
Sorry to hear that.
And I talk to my brother maybe once a week or so, 15 minutes to an hour when I talk to him. And literally 90% of the conversation is, doesn't it piss you off that dad was right about this? Doesn't it piss you off that dad was right about that? I mean, it's like everything. It's really annoying. But I compliment you for talking to your dad 2 hours a day. I love that so much. I want to ask you, because we're coming up on like an hour 20, which
We gotta have a part two.
we can go for 4 hours and 20.
Yeah,
We gotta have a part two. We gotta have a part two. I
Yeah, we
already
gotta have a part two.
People,
People have to hear you explain this.
yeah,
Because somebody could look at your Twitter and go, oh man, this guy's just trying to be provocative. That is not it at all.
no, it's not.
You are not,
Really,
you are at the heart of critical thinking. And I'm not going to say that we saw that from your tweets. I know I saw it from, or heard it in your conversations. You told me yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But what's next for you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I have my radio show, the Barrington Report, that's on ATL Talks Radio. I think ultimately I'm trying to grow that as best as I can. I do writing periodically for Newsweek. I'm having an article that I'm going to send tonight. We'll see how that goes. I have my Substack that I write weekly. I'm kind of sort of straddling the fence in regards to politics because, as I was telling Asia when we talked, I don't get a chance to speak as candidly as I want to on a political level. I have to tell people, I have to make people feel good, and oftentimes a lot of things that I have to say aren't going to make people feel good. And it's not necessarily trying to make people feel bad, but I'd rather tell you the truth than tell you what you want to hear. Writing a couple of books should be done by the end of the year. I kind of keep one of them a secret. Can't really talk about that one, but the other one, Bobby, that you're gonna like this is things my father taught me. My dad doesn't even know I'm writing this, so hopefully
you just crushed him.
But yeah, so that's something else I'm working on. But ultimately, I'm really trying to make my ways within media, especially within our radio because I honestly feel that there needs to be another voice of reason that I think that we don't have. And ultimately, my goal is, at some point in time, is that I want to have a platform or a medium where I can just talk to different types of people from different walks of life with different beliefs to just create the greater idea that we are so much similar than we think that we are, but we've been told opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in my personal life, I see this so much from just like having simple conversations with random strangers, with someone I may see at the gym, with someone I may see at the gas station. Just like make simple conversation. How are you feeling today? Honestly. And then you will start to see like damn.
Yeah, that's powerful.
The person will be like, well, like I got this going on, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, you just needed someone to just ask you how you're doing.
Yeah.
They care. Because so many people aren't having that.
No, they're not.
And so ultimately that's just my goal, just growing my media platform to the point to where I can paint a picture to all of us to allow people to see like, wow, like we have been totally doing this wrong. And again, like some of our thought processes and our behavior plays into it, but the fact that we've been getting inaccurate information about us all has mostly been playing into it. And so I think that's what I want to do.
Here's a thought. So there's something very interesting happening here. And by the way, whether you want to say it, it's my blush brush, just let us know, the Barrington Report, how often you record or you air and where everybody can check it out so we can promote that for you.
Okay,
but the second thing, I kind of see an opportunity to have you on maybe as a regular, opt-in or a guest when we have somebody that fits, well, I mean, anybody would fit, but, Bobby and I, we come across a lot of, some heavy hitters, some powerful players, but we always want to like kind of shake them and make them think. And I feel like you, Barrington, you're just very good at that. So maybe we can have you, we can talk about it depending on who we book, and we can edit this out, by the way. And, have you come on, and it can be called like the Barrington Check or something like that.
I'm totally like, guys, that would be, I would love to do that. That would be such an honor because like, I love, as much as I love people, I hate people. I think it's important to tell the truth about that. Like I hate people too, but but I love people because I love understanding what makes people, like what makes a person them. Like why do they think that? What do they do? That is, I don't care what anybody says. Some of the most intriguing information ever. When you realize or you figure out, like, oh, that's why you feel that way. Interesting. I never would have thought that, and I would love to do that. 100%.
I gotta ask you one more thing. It's
I gotta
Carter,
debate it.
Carter G. Wilson or C. Wilson?
No, it's Carter G. Woodson. Carter G. Woodson. Excuse me if I wasn't.
No, that's me.
Yes, Carter G.
I've
Woodson.
already read Soul, obviously being a financial guy, the economic facts and fallacies got me started on him, and I basically read everything then. So I'm looking for my next man crush. This might be it. This
Carter G. Woodson
Carter might be it.
He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
Awesome.
Like for example, and this is a little fun fact. Like I didn't even know at the time of emancipation or before emancipation, there were like over 500. No, I take that back. 300,000 free blacks in America during the time of slavery. I didn't even know this, and this is like data and facts that he has, like in his manuscripts that are widely available, but never talked about it on the mainstream.
Yeah, census data.
Yes, never talked about in the mainstream. And it's just like, wow, it's like we live in the information age, but we don't have the information that we need. How does that even work?
Right. I love this, man.
All right, Barrington, we're going to do this again.
Absolutely.
Let's keep regularly in touch because I kind of fell off on that before. That's my fault.
Totally fine. Bobby, you too. I'm always.
Barrington, man, always. Thank you so much for doing this.
So much. And you heard it live, Barrington Martin. A lot more to come from there. And this has been Asia in the Middle.
Cheers, guys.
Peace.
Cheers.